Hey guys, welcome back to the shop. Working on the come and swap today, and what I want to talk about now is copper versus nylon line for different things: airline, fuel line, whatever. I was going to do this video later, but as I kind of figured, some of you guys are jumping on the well, why don't you just switch to nylon line, get rid of the copper. Well, both of the things, both copper and nylon, have their advantages, and for some places, and not just because of heat, copper is a better choice. Like there's a lot of places on this truck where you just can't do with nylon line what you can do with the copper, and like going around different things, making compound bends and making them conform the way you need to. If you use nylon line in places like that, it'll rub and cut through it, and just abrade through it in no time at all. So I want to show you guys some places. Now I am switching to nylon line in some places for some things, but not everything. Okay, like I said, they both have their place. So let's get a there's nothing under the dash that I'm doing with nylon line right now, so let's start out right here at the fuel filter. I changed and moved my primary fuel filter head. Okay, this I've already mentioned in another video, if you haven't seen that one, that I changed this to a Napa filter base, 1" 14 thread, so I can run whatever filter I want on there. Moved it back about 8 inches. You measure from the back hole here to the back hole here, 8 inches. And that's just to clear the radiator hose and all. Now what I did was I trimmed the copper line and reflared it and bent it to fit, and I only had to cut, I don't know, maybe, okay, that's not the piece I cut out. I don't know where that piece went. I think I cut like 4 or 5 inches out of it, maybe. I guess in one of my cleaning sprees I picked it up and did something with it. Anyway, it wasn't that much I had to cut out, but if you look here how it came out, yes, I dented it, and that's one of the downsides of copper. You can dent it, but that's not that bad. Yes, it does work hard, and if you keep bending it over and over, a lot of stuff like this you shouldn't have to do over and over. The advantage here is that it's got one holder down there, and if you look along the whole section of it, you bend it where you want it and it stays there. You don't have to have a support or a P-clamp at every junction, every place where you need to make a bend. See, if I was to do that with nylon line, come out and around like that, I'd have to have P-clamps all over the place, and it still wouldn't want to do what I want to do. Look right here, and this is not secured in this nut yet, it's just stuck in there, but trying to make this bend right here, it just, like, you don't want to turn it up so it rubs on the frame rail, but you want to make a tight bend. But you get to right here, and it doesn't really want, it doesn't want to make that bend. It's really fighting it. I'm gonna need a P-clamp or something right here, and then it's gonna want, if I secure it there, it's gonna want to rub right here, or if I secure it down here, it's gonna want to rub this bolt here. If I just put a P-clamp here, holding it on the edge here, that may work, but that's not near as tight of a bend as I want. And then when it's running, it's going to be vibrating, and it could end up hitting this. Now over here, it's even worse, because I've got all this stuff to go around or through, and there's no real way to keep it from rubbing on things. And a fuel line, if it rubs through, you're gonna know it pretty quick, and it can cause a fire. You see, now if I secure it just like this right here, it's not touching the steering box, it's not touching the bracket, it's not touching the big nut underneath it. But if you look, I'm not sure if you're gonna see that on the camera, if you look back behind, it's rubbing on the frame rail. Now I intend to secure it farther up there, where I have I've got one more 1/2 inch clamp, P-clamp, that I can put on that 1/2 inch bolt and then I will connect it right to, I've already got a connector. Shit, where is it? Let me show you. I've already got the fuel line set up where I can connect it direct to 1/2-inch line. A similar setup to how I connected the airline. NPT fitting on the fuel line, then a NPT to NPT coupler, and then a compression fitting to 1/2-inch. So now I can run, I've got enough room to run this down and probably almost all the way up to the cross member, or all the way up there. But what I really wanted was I wanted it right down in here where there's some support, as I want to support the line right where it makes the connection, because this is heavy. You don't want this like out there wobbling around, bouncing around, because that can end up breaking things, cracking a line. Even a nylon line, if it vibrates enough, it will crack. So now there's also hose. I really don't want to go with hose on this, because hose rots in a shorter amount of time than any of the other stuff. Copper doesn't rot. Yes, it work hardens, it can crack, but if you don't leave water sitting in it, it's not going to corrode, at least not through. Hose, even silicone hose, in a few years it will rot. Of course, it lasts longer than regular rubber. These hydraulic hoses, these will be the first thing to rot probably. These are the hoses that came with the motor. I have no idea how old they are. But on here I went from hydraulic hose down to 3/8 down there, which you see I'm replacing the entire return line with plastic airline. I don't know if I'm going to stick with that red. I liked the idea of red because red fuel, but technically if it's diesel fuel it needs to be yellow. And I can't find anywhere that has a yellow DOT line around. I may just replace that with black. What the hell is that? I guess the reefer unit on that thing sounds like shit. So I may just use black line for that, and replace my old emergency airline. This I already did with nylon years ago. I may replace that with the red. We'll see. I'm going a different route with it though. I'm not going across the cross member where the jack shaft is. I'm coming back behind the transfer case and going across this, and I'm going to do something different with the return on the fuel tank. I'm going to do a whole separate video on that, because you need to do that with the Cummins. So keep an eye out for that. It is important if you're going to do this swap. Let me show you some other things where it pretty much has to be copper. You don't have a choice on these trucks. And we got to get under the truck for this, so alright. Now those of you who are saying my truck is going to be show quality, I appreciate it. I do appreciate your compliments, but it's not going to be show grade. It's going to be motor pool grade. I mean, you look under it, it does not look new underneath, okay? A lot of it looks good. It's definitely improved, but if it was going to be show quality, I would have to completely tear this all down and redo everything, and I'm not doing that. So all right, my point. So here we got our fuel supply line. Comes back down along here. It's bent just right to go around the motor mount bracket here, and it's not moving because it's secured in one place here. And it goes back, and I got a light here, hang on. See how it has to go up and over the transfer case mount there with nothing to support it. There's a bolt there. You could probably P-clamp something too, but then you're so close you're in danger of rubbing on the transfer case bracket there. So it goes back beyond that. You're not going to be able to see that, because I can't even see that. Back beyond that, it goes to a coupler there, because it makes a 90-degree turn and goes through a hole in the frame there to go out to the fuel tank. That you probably could do that with DOT line, do all that with DOT line, but it's going to be difficult to get past the transfer case mounts and everything over here with the points that you have to secure it. and keep it from rubbing on things, because between the support right there, the P-clamp, and going around this and going up to that other one, it's going to want to straighten itself out, and it's going to come up and it's going to rub all over that bracket right there, and you're going to end up with a hole in it right there and fuel all down the frame rail. Alright, so the best thing on that side, in my opinion, is copper. There's no reason you should really ever have to disconnect that line, at least not on a regular basis. Every once in a while, maybe, if you got to pull the fuel tank or pull the pump, whatever, but there's really no reason you should be pulling the fuel filter base off. So let's go over here. This right here, this line is the main air supply line for everything on the firewall. The everything inside, you know, the gauge cluster, the pressure gauge in there, the air warning, the horn, air governor, all that stuff supplied from this. This comes straight from the tank. Now if you look, you've got a P-clamp right there, and you have to come out and around this motor mount bracket and then turn and go up. And then it's such a compound. If you look at it up from here, now it's not connected right now. It has to go up and be secured right there to that bracket on the body, and then it turns and goes over and turns and goes back up again to the connector, which you can just see right there above the temperature sensor sticking out. So it's a multiple compound bin. Yes, you could drill some more holes and P-clamp the line all along there up to where it's going, or you could just stick with the one P-clamp down here, compound bin, one P-clamp there, which is the original clamp. It just slid down on the body and then over up to there. The best thing in this spot in particular, copper line. Okay, can you replace it with nylon? Yes. Good idea? Probably not, at least not in my opinion. Okay, main air supply line, the discharge from the compressor. Yes, the stainless braided line is enough to dissipate heat and not melt the nylon line if it wants to go directly to nylon. However, with the way I have it in here, if it was to come down and I had it just connected to nylon line, it'd be rubbing all over the steering box, because the way I got it to not rub anything like that is that it's connected to copper line right there at the end, and I was able to grab the fitting right there and bend it out enough, just right, to get the line to go where I want, that it doesn't touch anything. And since it's going to hold that position, it's perfect. If you couldn't do that with nylon, okay? So it would want to lay directly up against the frame rail, and maybe you could drill another hole and P-clamp it somewhere else, but then still laying directly against the frame rail. You can't P-clamp something to stick out away from it, unless you want to build you a little bracket out of some sheet metal that's bent, and that's stupid. You stick with a copper line, you just bend it. And then it goes up and over the motor mount here, and I did stick a piece of hose around it just because it's always bothered me. I didn't see any signs of it rubbing there, but I was there, I had the line off, so I put a piece of hose around it to make me feel better. Now, it goes up and over, and it actually is P-clamped right there in the worst spot on the truck to P-clamp something. You can't get to that for nothing. So it's not going to rub there. But if you follow it all the way along, there are... Got to turn the light on again. You'll see that there's not really a lot of P-clamps to support it along the way. In fact, it makes a bend right there. Going through that cross member, you can see the beginning of the bend, and it connects to the air tank right there. So you don't need really any support along there. It's P-clamp there, and I guess about, what, 3 feet? Doesn't need the support. Okay, so supply from the air tanks to the air pack. That's another very important one. That's this line right here. Okay? Look at this bend coming out. How it comes out and around and down, and it makes a compound bend around the... This is so hard to do. Makes a compound bend around the frame rail there, and then goes back. And then, believe it or not, it turns and straightens out forward again with a downward angle to connect to the air package. Let me see if I can get a shot of that from the bottom. Yeah. See, it bends around, comes around this way, and comes straight and connects to the air pack there. There is no way in hell you're going to do that with a nylon line and not be rubbing all over everything. You will have an air leak in short order. Yeah, you can make a nylon line do that, but it's going to be in such a bind and rubbing on so much stuff that it's going to break. These trucks vibrate a lot. You should all know that. And it's not going to be happy. So, not only that, that is the biggest one on the truck that I can think of as far as where a copper line is more appropriate than a nylon. Now here, you've got the discharge for the service port on the back of the truck for a trailer. Now it comes up right here, bends around, and you see it sitting on the heat sheet, or not the skid plate there. It bends and then goes and bends, makes a compound bend, goes back through the cross member, straightens out, and then goes up and lays along the frame and goes all the way back to the back of the truck. Yeah, you could probably run the entire length of that all the way up to about right there with nylon line and be fine. But what I would do if I was going to do that is just connect, use a compression union just like that brass thing right there, and connect my nylon line to the copper line and leave the copper line bend right there. That way you don't have to worry about, you know, the rubber or the plastic line rubbing anything. Now this, the one with the union on it, you see, I went from copper to plastic there because actually I had a leak. It had rubbed against a bolt somewhere in here, I guess, or another line. Yeah, it rubbed against another line or something. I can't remember. Right where that P-clamp is, just to the right of it. And I had a leak. I had to cut it out, replace that section with nylon line, and then when I went down there, I went another union and back to copper because it had to bend at the time. It had to go up and hold the return line in place for the multi-fuel. So what I'm doing now, I'm doing away with that whole thing. I'm not coming across the cross member here and going through a line or a hole in the frame. You see where it comes out over here. It goes through the battery box and back to the tank. That line is a huge pain in the ass to get connected to the tank, and I really, really have never liked a copper fuel line going through my battery box, especially right there where the slave cables go through the floor and they can rub against it. That's stupid. That was a piss poor idea of whoever designed these trucks or thought about the plumbing for them to put a multi-fuel in them. That was stupid. So I'm doing away with all that. But you see, when they had it, they had to be able to make compound bends to come down and across the cross member here and then back and through a hole in the frame there. So it does serve its purpose, and you see it's conveniently mashed there. It does serve its purpose. Copper is not the best for everything, but it is the best for some things. There are some, as I've said a bunch of times already in this video, there are some things that copper, nylon just cannot do, where copper shines. So, as far as just general use, if there is a choice between copper and nylon will work, I will use nylon. But if it's easier to use copper, like, I'll use copper. And honestly, up here on the front, it would be way easier to use copper and just bend me up a new line to go across here and back there. But because these trucks are famous for damaging copper fuel lines across the front crossmember, I'm going to go with plastic. It is easily replaceable in the field. You can buy this stuff anywhere. Any truck shop, equipment shop, whatever, they're going to have half-inch DOT line in stock. Even truck stops, you know, there's shops there will have some. So if I ever have an issue with that, you know, it's not going to get crushed, because if it does, it'll go back to shape. But if it gets a hole in it or something, no big deal. Also, the fact that my wiring harness has to run across the same place as it, it worries me less, you know, of fire danger, because I know the fuel line itself is not going to rub through the wires. Now, could on the cross member, yes, I've got to drill a couple of holes and thread them for P-clamps to hold all this stuff. But anyway, that's just my thoughts on it, guys. I'm probably forgetting some things. I've been thinking about this stuff for a while. I'm so all over the place getting different things done right now, you know, getting the wiring done, and I've got the cross member done. I really like that. And now I'm doing plumbing and some cooling system. I'm everywhere. So if there's something I've forgotten, if there's something I've overlooked, you know, don't be shy, you know, talk to me about it. Put it in the comments, and we'll have a conversation. Otherwise, I'm about talked out on this subject right now. I've said my piece, you know, where I stand on it. I don't want to beat a dead horse, so to speak. So thanks for watching. I hope you found this informative. You'll understand where I'm going with this. So don't forget to check out our sponsors. They are in the description below. Leave all their information there. We get our parts from Big Mike's Motor Pool and our paints. And when we do a Jeep, we're probably going to get some parts from Rapco. Check them out. Be sure to tell them I sent you. And we'll see you later.